There are moments when you see a car and instantly know it is something different. For me, the first time I came across the shape of the 1953 Studebaker Coupe was exactly that kind of experience. In an old photograph, the car appeared sleek and refined, a complete contrast to the heavy iron boxes that defined most of the 1950s. I remember asking myself, how could a small company from Indiana create something that looked like it belonged to the future? You do not need to be a mechanic or a lifelong car enthusiast. Just a single glance is enough to realize there is something special here. And that is why this model is still remembered decades later, even though Studebaker has long disappeared. In this video, we will explore 10 little-known facts that reveal why the 1953 Coupe continues to capture attention wherever it appears. Number 1. Aerodynamic design, rarely seen in 1953. In 1953, most American coupes still looked tall, boxy, heavy, and covered in chrome. Studebaker took a bold detour, a coupe with a low, long, and seamless silhouette that almost sliced through the wind. Seen from the side, the car gave the impression of motion, even while standing still in the garage. What made it stand out was that the shape was not just for magazine covers. It genuinely altered the driving experience. With less air resistance around the body, the car ran smoother at higher speeds and felt more planted when changing lanes or cornering. Few American cars of the 1950s could claim the same, since most makers put style above substance. The more you study it, the more it feels like Studebaker was borrowing from European thinking. Simplicity, efficiency, and clean lines. Put it next to a Chevrolet Bel Air or a Ford Crestline of the same year, and the difference is undeniable. One side offered ornate, decorative bulk. The other revealed a distilled, almost futuristic draft. Perhaps that is why enthusiasts still describe this coupe as being 10 years ahead of its time. Number 2. Panoramic curved windshield. Among the details that made the Studebaker Coupe look so modern, the panoramic curved windshield stands out as one of the most striking. Instead of the flat glass found on most American cars of the era, Studebaker used a single-piece curved windshield that wrapped around the front cabin. From the driver's seat, it created a sense of expanded vision, wide and unobstructed, unlike anything typical of the time. On American streets in the 1950s, this feature made the coupe instantly recognizable. Ford and Chevy still relied on flat windshields, sometimes made of two pieces joined together with a visible crease in the middle. In contrast, Studebaker's panoramic glass offered a seamless, elegant look that echoed the design of jet aircraft, the ultimate symbol of post-war technology. What is fascinating is that the curved windshield was not just about aesthetics. It also improved aerodynamics, with less turbulence around the A-pillars, allowing the car to glide more smoothly at higher speeds. Of course, producing such glass in the early 1950s was expensive and technically challenging, which added to Studebaker's production costs. Number 3. The lowest roofline in its class. The roofline of the 1953 Studebaker Coupe was so low that it stood in complete contrast to the tall, bulky American coupes of its time. This bold decision immediately gave the car a sporty, compact, and captivating look, something rarely seen on American streets in that era. Place it next to a Chevrolet Bel Air or a Ford Crestline, and the difference is obvious at first glance. One stood tall, heavy, and traditional. The other, Studebaker, with its sweeping low roofline and clean silhouette, looked as if it were hugging the ground. In many ways, and that single detail was enough to make the car feel like an outsider. a futuristic intruder among the crowd. Of course, lowering the roof came with compromises. The interior was not particularly spacious, especially in the rear seats where headroom was limited. But for buyers who valued style and individuality above maximum comfort, it was a trade-off worth embracing. Number 4. A sleek fastback rear end. Instead of a squared-off design overloaded with chrome, as seen on most American coupes of the era, Studebaker chose a sleek fastback treatment. The roofline flowed smoothly downward into the tail, creating a continuous curve that made the car look as if it had been sculpted from a single piece of metal. This approach gave the car a modern presence, more in line with European sports cars that valued simplicity and fluidity. It was not a flashy look, but one of elegance, a design cue that immediately set the Studebaker apart. Collectors today often remark that the fastback tail alone is enough to identify the car at first glance. In practice, the clean rear lines also aided aerodynamics, reducing drag and helping the coupe remain stable at higher speeds. Yet beyond the technical benefits, the fastback rear became a design signature, showing that Studebaker could deliver sophistication without relying on excess chrome or exaggerated shapes. Number 5. A driver-oriented interior. Instead of a cluttered dashboard overloaded with chrome trim, as seen in most Detroit cars of the time, the Studebaker featured a clean, functional layout. Gauges were positioned directly in front of the driver, clearly visible and easy to read, without being obscured by the steering wheel. Slip into the driver's seat, and the difference is immediate. The front cabin feels open, the large steering wheel moves with ease, and the rounded dashboard panels are simple yet elegant. Everything seems designed for practical operation, rather than for dazzling passengers with excess ornamentation. It carried a distinctly European influence, where the driving experience was given more importance than sheer decoration. Seats came in cloth or leather options, with backrests offering better support than many of its contemporaries. While the rear suffered from limited headroom due to the low roofline, the front seats provided a comfortable and commanding position. This forward-thinking approach made the 1953 coupe a true bridge between American luxury and European precision. Number 6. Studebaker's first 232 cubic inch V8 engine. Under the hood of the Studebaker Coupe sat a milestone in the company's history. The 232 cubic inch V8, first introduced in 1951. For an independent automaker, developing a V8 was a bold statement that they could stand toe-to-toe with Detroit's giants. This engine produced about 120 horsepower, a respectable figure at the time, especially when compared to Chevrolet models that were still relying on inline-six power plants. Studebaker's V8 delivered a deep, confident exhaust note, smooth acceleration, and consistent pulling power, giving the coupe performance that matched its striking appearance. Behind the wheel, the difference was clear. Press the throttle, and the car responded eagerly, without the sluggishness of heavier rivals. On the highway, it cruised at speed with ease, proving that Studebaker had put just as much thought into real-world performance as they had into design. What made the 232 CID even more important was its role as a foundation. From it came larger versions, the 259 and 289 cubic inch V8s, that powered Studebakers throughout the 1950s. Number 7. Full hydraulic braking system. In most cars of the era, you had to push the pedal with all your strength and still hope the car would eventually grind to a halt. The Studebaker Coupe told a different story. With full hydraulic brakes on all four wheels, its response was quicker, steadier, and far more reassuring. This system allowed pedal pressure to be distributed evenly to each wheel, making stops smoother and more predictable. Drivers no longer had to fight with the brake pedal. Instead, they enjoyed a controlled and confident feel. At a time when many American cars still used mechanical brakes, the difference was striking, often noticed from the very first drive. Another advantage was comfort on long journeys. Mechanical systems often left drivers with sore legs after hundreds of miles of constant braking effort. In the Studebaker, hydraulic assistance made the process lighter, reducing fatigue and making the trip safer and more enjoyable. Number 8. An improved suspension system. Up front, the car used coil springs and control arms, which absorbed bumps more effectively than the old-fashioned solid axle setups still common at the time. In the rear, leaf springs were carefully tuned to balance ride, comfort with stability during cornering. The result was a driving experience, unlike most American cars of the early 1950s. On the highway, the coupe felt smooth and composed, free from the excessive body sway that plagued bulkier models. On rougher suburban roads, the suspension soaked up imperfections, keeping both driver and passengers comfortable. Some owners even described the Studebaker as feeling as light as a European car, a rare compliment for a mid-century American coupe. It reflected the company's commitment to building a car that was not just stylish, but genuinely enjoyable to drive. Number 9. A lightweight yet rigid chassis. The Studebaker Coupe impressed not only with its looks. Beneath the body was a chassis both rigid and lightweight, a sharp contrast to the bulky American cars of its time. The steel frame was redesigned with clever reinforcement points, providing strength without unnecessary mass. As a result, the coupe weighed less than many of its competitors. This reduction in weight made the car quicker to respond, easier to handle, and more stable overall. Drivers of the era often noticed the difference as soon as they got behind the wheel. In corners, the car leaned far less, and on highways, it held steady rather than swaying like heavier models. For a market accustomed to oversized, sluggish cars, this was a refreshing experience. The lightweight yet rigid chassis also supported the sleek proportions of the body, allowing Studebaker to maintain elegance without compromising safety. Number 10. Long hood, rear set cabin. If the low roofline gave the Studebaker Coupe its sporty stance, then the combination of a long hood and a rear set cabin truly defined the fast car proportions that would later become the hallmark of American muscle. From the front, the hood stretched forward as if ready to swallow the road, while the driver's compartment was pushed back toward the rear axle. This arrangement created a sense of balance, strength, and modernity far beyond what was typical in 1953. Compared with Detroit's offerings of the same era, the difference was striking. Cars like the Bel Air or Crestline carried shorter noses with centrally placed cabins, practical but lacking drama. The Studebaker, on the other hand, looked more like a European sports car than a typical American family coupe. Thanks to these proportions, the car was not just beautiful in brochures, it actually conveyed an aura of excitement behind the wheel. Most people may not have realized it at the time, but this layout planted the seeds for a design trend that would dominate for decades. Think of the Ford Mustang or Chevrolet Camaro of the 1960s. Their silhouettes echo what Studebaker had already shown more than a decade earlier. Looking back at these 10 unique features, it is clear why the Studebaker Coupe is still praised as one of America's most beautiful and advanced coupes. From its aerodynamic profile and low roofline To the long hood, lightweight chassis, and strong V8, every element combined to create a machine decades ahead of its time. What impresses me most is how Studebaker blended art with engineering. Every detail served a purpose, not only to catch the eye, but also to deliver a better driving experience. That is why, even 70 years later, the coupe continues to inspire admiration. But what about you? If given the chance, would you choose to drive a 1953 Studebaker Coupe instead of a Chevy Bel Air or a Ford Crestline of the same era? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next classic car story.